Hey everyone, this is John Santo from Genius Loci Games. Today we're back with Fantasy Grounds, and we are going to go over how to create MPCs, in this case creatures, from scratch with the 5e rule set in Fantasy Grounds. And then we're going to go over how to add maps into Fantasy Grounds and start to set them up for encounters. And then in the next video, I'll show you guys how to make encounters. Before we begin though, I need to make a correction based on the last video. As everyone should remember, we created a cleric in 5e after we loaded up the rule set and went over the basics on how to load everything up with the rule set. And I said that the cleric, who was a dwarf, could not use a warhammer. I was wrong. As Apsara, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly, mentioned to me, dwarves get proficiency with warhammers. So, cleric or not, our cleric should have been able to use a warhammer. Alright, moving on. Once again, we are in the Fantasy Grounds launcher, and we're going to continue in the same place that we did last time. So, we're going to load campaign, we're going to go to our FG video, and hit start. Now, I'm probably going to say this every time. I am running Fantasy Grounds in Linux, using the Play on Linux service, which is a Wine front loader. Alright, we're up. Now, found something interesting out. If you go to options in your GM section, you could actually change your logo. As you see right now, I have the Smiteworks logo on instead of the D&D logo that was on last time. Since I only have the basic stuff loaded up, not the Mines of Flandiver or anything else. These are the only ones I have access to. So right now, we're going to keep it with the awesome Smiteworks Dragon. So, when you want to create an NPC, first thing you want to do is load into the 5e rule set. Second thing, and this is what I do, and you don't have to do this, is make sure you have your DM basic rules loaded. And I always bring up one of their monsters, just as a way of being able to check myself as I go. So we'll X everything else out, and we're going to put our Awakened Shrub right there. Next thing you do is go to MPCs, and you want to create an item. Comes up New Personality. Once this happens, you want to go into that. We're going to X out of there. We're going to put our new personality right here. Now the monster we're going to be making today is the Neverborn. You can see right here, this is a 5th edition medium undead creature that I created for my blog about a week ago. So, it's pretty much the same thing that you would do with a character, except there's no drag and drop. Everything here is load. You have to type everything in yourself. So, we're not going to go and do all of that today. Right here is where you'd put your symbol. And we're in the D&D basic symbols here. If you want, you can go back into your library, go back into modules, and if you look around a bit, you can usually find Fantasy Grounds symbols. But since we're not doing that today, and I will show you guys at some other point, we will just use theirs. And Neverborn, we want to use an N. We're going to X out of there. And you just type everything up as normal. You can use your tab pad on your keyboard as you would almost anything else. And then you type in everything in your cons section. As you can see, in some ways our guy is pretty kick-ass. In other ways, not so much. Lots of resistances. Now you can copy and paste everything you need. So with damage immunities, we are just going to, and this right here is very helpful. Now there's no right click, so you do have to do old-fashioned Control V. We're going to add this all in. I'm going to show you guys some pretty cool things that come about when you create your monster. Now one thing that's not normal that I always put down with any kind of undead, and you won't see it, let's go back to our library here. We're going to say MPCs. Does not have an alphabetical index, but we know what we want. We're going to go with some undead. And let's go with a ghoul. You notice no radiant. Radiant does do extra damage to undead, at least in my games. So, vulnerabilities, there you go. And you just continue to copy and paste. Again, can't right click until you're nice and through. Challenge level is 11, which is 7,200 experience. We're going to skip traits. We're going to go right to our actions. As you can see, our guy has some nice actions. So you go over here to your screw, edit list, hit the plus sign, and you can start writing in your actions. In this case, multi-attack. Hit the name, and then below that in the box you type in what it does. In this case, the Neverborn can make 2 attacks. And you just keep doing this. In this case, we're not going to do much more than one of his, or hers, or its 3 attacks. So what we're going to do now is our barbed tongue. And everything in 5th edition has a attack type. Even though this is a tongue, the Neverborn's attack counts as a melee weapon. You notice I have melee weapon. It's a melee weapon attack. It's a +7, 2 hit. Now you always want to make sure you have these the 2 hit here and the hit right here. No matter what, you want to make sure you have that. And this is why. Let's lock our guy. We have all this down. Looks pretty much the same. Nice and pretty. We're going to minimize this guy just for a second. Now, if you have your MPC stats up and they are doing something, you notice my +7 to hit and my 48 +4 damage are showing. Double click and it will automatically roll for you. Same with damage. And what you do is you go down the board, continuing to just fill out your guy like this. Now, the next thing you want to do after you create your character is you probably want to have him someplace. So you load up maps and images. Now, if you read here, it says drop image files here to add them for your campaign. So what we're going to do, let's move this right here, and we're going to go into my Dropbox, because that's where I keep everything. And we're just going to load up one of my maps for my Kickstarter. Now, if you notice something, ta-da, shows right up. I want to tell you, if you're doing this through Linux, this always does not always work. Double click, and you can play with the size. I would recommend actually lowering and editing the size of any big maps to something more manageable. Because if you notice, unless you're in full screen, this is kind of big. We're going to use this map for now. You want to go in, and if you want to set your layers and have a grid in game, you go to layers, go to set grid. Now this lets you actually draw a grid. We're going to pick one of my grid squares here. Now every grid in this game that the characters and the icons can be on match perfectly with what Monkey Blood Design drew on the map when they created it for me. So let's go to tokens. We're just going to add a token, a random token. And if you notice, go right here to where it matches up a little better. Because the tiles, and the actual tiles in the room are a little differently spaced. It all fits perfectly. Now you can go between lines if you want. It all fits perfectly in. So you can set up your bad guys, your good guys, to just go nuts with one another. Now the other way to add in a map, we're going to have to minimize this. So we're going to restore the window down to its little tiny self. As you go to your files, in Windows you go to username and go from there. There's an extra step when you do this through Linux because we have to create a virtual drive through Wine. So for us in Linux it is home. In my case it's play on Linux virtual drives. And then you find Fantasy Grounds 2, Drive C, Users, your name, application data. Now right here, starting with users, this is where we match up with Windows. So users, your name, application data, find Fantasy Grounds, go in there, go into your campaigns. Now, we called ours FG Video. Open that up, you go to video, you go to images, and there's our map. You want to add another map in without dragging and dropping here, you do it right through there. So we're going to open up another window. This time we're not going to add a map because we're just doing this as a test. So we're just going to go to my downloads here. No, I don't have the image there anymore. We're going to use the one on my desktop. We're going to take the cover to my next adventure. And we're just going to drop it in there. We're going to say this is an MPC image, just for the moment. So we go back into here. And let's close our map. We restore this. We're going to X out and right there. Double click, resize, and there's the image. So those are the two ways you can add images and maps to Fantasy Grounds 2. Now another question I got, and we're not going to do this week, but I will give a very quick show, is how to export. So say you don't want to spend the $50 to buy the complete monster set, but you have the monster manual at home, and for whatever reason you have the time to be able to take all the monsters in the monster manual and do what we just did with the Neverborn. What you do then, go to this, libraries, modules, export. You just fill all this in, you export, another thing will come up, you say where you want it to be shown. So we're just going to fill out a bunch of random stuff here, and we're going to export, and it exports for you. And you can see exported data. You can check personalities, encounters, items, particles, tables, all this stuff you can export. Story. You can even add tokens in. If you have specific tokens for specific MPCs, specific PCs, we're going to go into more detail with this at a different time with an actual module I'm working on. Alright, so that does it for today. We went over basic monster creation and very basic map drop, map add in through directory, and setting up your grid. Next time we will go over setting up encounters and setting up story details that can be shared with players. Any questions, just drop it down below. You can message me over the blog. I'm on Google+. And that's about it. I will give links to the Neverborn entry on my blog. And see you all next time.